Kazakhstan joins Pax Silica. The U.S. is targeting a path outside China's grip on critical materials. The resource-rich nation of Kazakhstan has now entered the conversation around AI supply chains. But make no mistake, this is not a story about semiconductor factories being built in Central Asia. I see this as a story playing out right at the heart of the U.S. China rivalry over the materials that make modern chips possible.
As always, I'll explain everything in the most simplified way possible. Even a middle schooler should be able to follow along. If you're a specialist watching, some parts may feel oversimplified, but I'd like to prioritize giving everyone the big picture first. Think of a food town where every restaurant depends on a single secret spice, and only one veteran shop controls the supply. So sit back and enjoy. Picture a town famous for its food scene. Every popular restaurant has its signature dish, and every single one of them needs just a pinch of one particular spice to make it work. The amount used is tiny, but without it, the flavor simply doesn't come together, and that dish just can't go on the menu. The spice itself isn't rare in nature. You can find the raw ingredients scattered all around town. The problem is, there's only one mill in town that knows how to process and refine it properly. So everyone ends up buying from that single veteran shop. And before anyone even noticed, that one shop had quietly cornered 90% of the entire local supply. Then one day, the shop owner makes a declaration. I'm no longer selling to the restaurant across the street. The restaurant goes pale. The spice is just a small line item in their budget, but without it, they can't serve their signature dish at all. And the moment the shop started withholding, the price of that spice skyrocketed across the entire town, multiplying several times over almost overnight. So the restaurant across the street decides to act. It reaches out to a supplier in a nearby village and helps them open a brand new spice shop from scratch. It puts up the construction funding. It even goes out and lines up buyers for the new shop's output in advance. It refuses to stay at the mercy of one veteran monopolist forever. The new shop's output is a fraction of the veterans, but the simple fact that a second source now exists carries enormous weight. This was never really a volume problem. It's a security problem. The peace of mind that comes from not being locked into a single supplier matters far more than the raw numbers on paper. And now, this story is playing out in the real world, right now. Now, let's come back to reality. The food town is the AI economy. The veteran spice shop is China. The restaurant across the street is the United States. The framework the U.S. built to break free from China's stranglehold on critical material supply is called Pax Silica. Launched by the U.S. State Department in late 2025, it has now grown to 24 signatory nations. And the country that just stepped forward as a new candidate for that second spice shop is Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is a resource powerhouse. It holds oil, uranium, copper, and tungsten. Uranium alone accounts for roughly 40% of global production. But the two materials that matter most for semiconductors are something different: gallium and tungsten. Both are essential for AI chips and defense systems, and both are currently controlled by China. That is precisely why Kazakhstan is now sitting right at the center of the U.S. China rivalry.
Let's start with gallium. It's used in compound semiconductors, like GaN and GaAs, materials that are critical for power semiconductors, 5G high-frequency components, radar systems, and defense electronics. Gallium doesn't come from dedicated mines. It's a trace byproduct found in bauxite and zinc ores, which makes it uniquely difficult to source independently.
Gallium is a byproduct of alumina refining. Without a massive, mature aluminum industry behind you, extracting gallium at any meaningful scale is essentially impossible. China climbed to the very top of the global aluminum industry, and in doing so, gained control of gallium as a side effect. China now holds roughly 99% of the world's primary gallium production. That is the true identity of our veteran spice shop. And China chose to use that position as a weapon. In 2023, it introduced export licensing requirements for gallium.
By December 2024, it went further, imposing a full ban on gallium exports to the United States. At that point, the U.S. had virtually zero domestic gallium production. Global gallium output is only around 760 tons per year, a small market, and when the country controlling more than 90% of it turns off the tap, alternative sources simply don't appear overnight. That's why securing supply sources outside China became critically important for the United States almost immediately. And this is where Kazakhstan re-enters the picture. Kazakhstan actually had primary gallium production dating back to the Soviet era, but it was shut down in 2013 under relentless competitive pressure from Chinese pricing. Now, with the strategic risks of that dependency becoming impossible to ignore, the business case for restarting that production is quietly coming back to life. Eurasian Resources Group, is now targeting a commercial restart of gallium production, leveraging the alumina refining infrastructure at its Pavlodar facility. The planned investment exceeds $20 million, targeting an annual output of 15 tons. This is exactly the kind of new spice shop in the next village from our analogy. Small in scale, but strategically meaningful. The key question is, who buys the output? ERG has already signed a long-term supply contract with Mitsubishi Corporation RTM Japan. Once operational, Kazakhstan would become the world's second-largest primary gallium producer, right after China. The numbers, 15 tons against a global total of 760, are modest. But the point has never been about the volume. It's that a supply route bypassing China now connects directly to Japanese industry, and that changes the strategic picture. The second critical material is tungsten. It's hard, it has an exceptionally high melting point, and it's indispensable for defense applications and precision manufacturing, with virtually no viable substitutes available. China controls this one as well. When China tightened its export controls on tungsten in 2025, the price of the key intermediate product, APT, ammonium paratungstate, multiplied several times over within a single year. Kazakhstan holds two of the world's largest undeveloped tungsten deposits, Northern Katpar and Upper Kayrakti. Total estimated reserves stand at 1.4 million tons in WO3 equivalent, roughly 70% of Kazakhstan's total identified mineral wealth. At full operational capacity, these deposits could supply around 15% of global tungsten production. And the company that holds the development rights is U.S.-based Cove Capital, with a 70% ownership stake. This is where the deal becomes truly significant. The signing ceremony did not take place at a mineral industry conference. It happened at the C5+1 summit, the framework for U.S. Central Asia heads of state, and specifically inside the Oval Office. Reports indicate that President Trump and the Secretary of Commerce were directly and personally involved in sealing the deal. On top of that, the U.S. Export-Import Bank has signaled intent to provide up to $900 million out of a total financing package of approximately $1.1 billion. This is a fully government-backed, top-level operation. The goal goes well beyond simply digging ore out of the ground and exporting it. The real ambition is to produce intermediate products, materials like APT, ammonium paratungstate, inside Kazakhstan itself. Kazakhstan doesn't want to remain a raw materials exporter indefinitely. The U.S. wants to build out material processing capacity that exists entirely outside of China's sphere. Both sides' interests align perfectly at exactly this point. To wrap up, Kazakhstan is not the only player being positioned in the resource role. Australia is contributing critical minerals, Norway brings its sovereign wealth fund, and capital is flowing in from Qatar and the UAE. The United States is systematically building up multiple new spice shops in parallel, piece by piece, reducing its dependency on the single veteran shop that is China. Kazakhstan was chosen as one of those key nodes. Today's news is not a story about semiconductor factories. It is, in my reading, a quiet but determined struggle for control, playing out not inside the chip, but in the supply chains that make those chips possible in the first place. That's all for today. I'll keep bringing you semiconductor news and analysis. So if you found this useful, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. This has been Ty on Semiconductor News Decoded.